Welcome back, everyone. Um, so we've been looking at map functions and related functions. We've looked at mapAccum right, and there's two more. They both are object related functions, mapKeys and mapObjIndexed. And so let's just jump in. So the mapKeys, very simple type definition, type signature, I should say. Um, the first argument is a function that takes a string and returns a string, and then it takes an object and it returns an object. Um, Not much information here. Function, object, object. Um, but I do notice that this is added in version 0.31.0, and the current version of Ramda at the time of this recording is 0.31.3. So very recent, but I don't know when the last update was. It could have been 5 years ago or something. Um, but it transforms an object by converting the keys to new values. So you know how map will work uh, on arrays and objects in Ramda, like the Ramda's version of map, where the built-in map in JavaScript is on the array prototype, so it only works on arrays. And you'd have to convert the array to, or an object to an array, like a list of pairs, and then map over those, and then convert that result to an object. But here you could do it all in one go. It also says note that if multiple keys map to the same new key, the last one process will dominate. So I think it's funny they use the word dominate. That's a pretty strong word, but it looks like with all these functions, if you have duplicate keys in an object, it's going to ignore the first one and use the last one. So the last one wins. And I think that's native behavior. So let's steal their example. Notice this code snippet doesn't use semicolons. So maybe, like this one does. I don't know if that's an oversight or if somebody making this one started using the fact that we don't need semicolons anymore in most cases. Anyway, doesn't really matter. Let's do a log and paste that in. Yeah, so let's use the object that I have in my sum data here, and we'll just look at that first. If we do d.obj, that will give us an object that looks like this with the ID, name, and active property. And so we have one test and true. And just as I said that, I'm going to go back to their data. And the reason is because this is a number, this is a string, and this is a Boolean. And it's going to be hard to think of a function that we will run that works on all that data. So let me just go back. But I'm going to take this object and give it a name of obj just to clean this up. And let's see what we get. We get an error. Map keys to upper. Yeah, in their example, they're not importing it like this. They just say r.upper. What's interesting though is I think that's a I think that's a typo because they're using r.map here, r.map keys, but they're using just to upper here. Yeah, I think that's a slight oversight in the documentation. Let's see what we get now. Still get an error because I didn't save. Huh? What did I do? R2 upper. R.map keys is not a function. Really? Well, how is that? Just do this. Okay, so that's undefined. Wait a second. But you're telling me that this is an error? And we're saying that r.mapKeys is not a function? Strange, huh? What if we don't call it all at once, partially apply it, and then do it like this? Whoa, guys, that's weird. I mean, am I doing something wrong? I don't feel like I am. I mean, I'm using their example. Barbaz, 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, that doesn't matter. And I was saying if I used my data, it wouldn't work because we don't have um hard to think of a function that will operate on those different values, but this operates on the keys, and the keys are all strings. So I still don't know why it won't work, but I'm going to go back to my d.obj, and I still get r.mapKeys is not a function. I'm so confused. I am so confused. Let me try it like this. There should be no reason why this should work. And it still doesn't. r.mapKeys is not a function. That is strange. Okay, now I got to dig in and look at my package. Oh, this is quite recent. Added in version 31, and I'm using version 30.1. All right, so let's go to version 31. Oh, 0. And clear that and npm install. Wow. So that mean like, did they just add this like the other day or something? They must have. I'm gonna go look at that and figure out when version 31. Uh, well, first of all, let's see if this works. And it does. Okay. So anyway, we're just going through and we're looping through the object, and it just gives us back the values of the object, but it runs a callback function on the keys. So we could update the keys. We could concat a taco. All right, so we get taco ID, taco name. We could flip this. Tacos are always better on the right. Now we get ID taco. You do a space. I mean, this is silly, but yeah, I mean, this could be very useful. First of all, I think it's very useful to be able to map over things. Now, the question I have is that since map works on, oh, I see. So map also works on objects. Like we have x1, y2, z3. But when we're mapping, the function is taking an A and returning a B. That's not that helpful, but it's acting on the values. It's not, and it's just passing the keys along. But if we want to do the opposite, we can leave the values alone, just pass those through, and then act on the keys. And I mean, this is a not the taco, but this is a perfect example of the uppercase converting to upper. That may be something you want to do, or converting to lower, or proper casing it so you have the first letters um, capitalized. Especially if you had, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons. I think it's a really handy function. Other people do because they just added it. Before we look at map object indexed, let's go in and see if we can find the version history. Uh, there, maybe we could go to GitHub. I'm not sure. I don't really look for version history so often. Okay, but here it is. Last month, so okay. Well, at least we know that they're actively adding things. Uh, let's make this a little bigger. Releases June 22nd, and today is July 24th. So just over a month ago. I must have started this right before then. I have to go back and look when my first video is, but let's take a look at the release notes. Upgraded guide, 4 commits. Yeah, not a lot of information here. So I'll just leave it. But and then I'm gonna assume that, let's see, go back here. Let me get rid of this. There we go. Uh, but this one was added in zero point 0.9, so this must not be all that related to map keys. I mean, they're both mapping, but so let's take a look at this one, see what this does. Or wait, should we look at rename keys and rebuild? Let's do that first. And if there's time, we'll get to this next one. What does rebuild do? First of all, let's go back. We've got a function that takes a string, returns a string, and an object. It returns an object. Rebuild takes a function that takes a pair of a string and an A and returns a pair. Oh, I'm sorry. It's yeah, a pair, and then returns a list of strings and B's, the list of strings and A's, and then returns. Or is this a function? Yeah, I guess this is a function that takes a list of strings and B's and then return, and then it also takes an object with a key and the value is an A, and that's an A, and then returns a new object with a key and a B, which is like from here. It's a little mixed up with all the symbols and syntax and stuff. Let's read this. Okay, so the function is a convert function. Never seen that before. A function that converts a key and a value to an array of key value arrays. Okay, so like two pairs, right? So if we did, r dot two pairs, and then we did, I think that just takes the one object, or wait, converts a key and a value to an array, key value pairs. So if I did d dot entries, let's see if this works first, then I'll explain it a little better. Yeah, okay, so d dot entries is coming from this some data package, and it's just a list of lists, right? So this is the outer array, and then each item is its own pair with a string and a number. And if we did two pairs, which is like object dot entries and built in JavaScript, it converts that to, it takes the key, which in the array is an object, so it takes the keys 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the second item is the pair. So that's just loosely related, but that's what this feels like to me. A function that converts a key and value to an array. So actually not d dot entries, but something like d dot object. I think it takes an object. It's talking about this here, key A. Uh, so again, the object that we're working with looks like this. ID1, name test, active true. So if we change that to pairs, we get it like this. So we have an outer array, and the inner array takes the ID one key value property, puts it in an array, a tuple, where ID is the first item and one is the second, and so on and so on. But we're not looking at that right now. I just found that that's very similar to what this function does. And then it takes the structure to convert, which is this. Okay, so all of this is one argument, the function. And it takes a pair, string of A, and returns a list of pairs. Okay, and the structure to convert, and it returns an array, a new object whose key value pairs are the result of applying the convert function to every key value pair in object. What's confusing to me is it's showing me here that it's returning an object, but here it says it returns an array. So, I mean, array is an object, so maybe that's what it is. But let's read the definition and then play with the example. So, or the description. So, transforms an object into a new one, right? So the key A gets transformed to a key B. Applying to every key value pair a function creating 0, 1, or many new key value pairs, and then combining the results into a single object, right? So it does return an object. That's strange. Not sure why they say array here. And I'm not sure I want to find out either. See also mapKeys, and renameKeys. So we've looked at these two, and we'll take a quick glance at this one as well. So we'll start with their example, reverse engineer it. All right, so rebuild. I need to put these on lines, two lines. So that's the function, and that's the object. Let's see what we get, and then figure out why. We get A1, B4, C9. It's a flat object. And we're using, so what we're doing is we're passing in an object, the key with keys and values, and the values are A. And so that object we're passing in is here. So this is the K and this is the B. And then the function takes one at a time the key and the value. So the A and the one, or the B and the two, or the C and the three. And then we're passing it an array, like a list of functions. Okay, I see, I think. So the first thing we're doing, this reminds me of what was the first one we looked at, or was it in the other video, the mapObjIndexed, where we're like doing two steps together and returning, well, at that point we're returning a tuple. Here we don't, but we're uppercasing the keys. So we get capital A, B, and C when we passed in lowercase a, B, and C. And then the second operation is we're just multiplying the value by itself. So 1, 2, 3, we get 1, 4, 9. So we're like squaring the digits here, or the values. And I'm a little confused of why we're returning, why this returns a list. I mean, that's what it shows here. It's returning a list of lists. And maybe that's just the easiest way to do it or something, but or is it that I can pass multiple uh, functions here in this array, like multiple inside this array? So just to make sure, let's just do, and they're using the built-in ones. I just noticed that they're doing K dot to uppercase instead of R dot to upper. That's all right. Let's just figure it out. So does this work? I mean, it should just give us back the same thing because we're uppercasing it and then just lowercasing it. And and it does both. And that's why it returns a list of lists. So the inner list is like this work. The first item works on keys, and the second one works on values. Like, I don't think it would work with three. So hopefully that gives me an error. That'll make me feel better. It doesn't, but it doesn't. I think it just ignores it. Like we're getting the same thing. Let me run this. Go back and run it without clearing my log. Uh, yeah, we get the same thing. So it just takes. I mean, it tells you right here. It just takes a function that takes a pair of string and A's and returns a list of pairs of strings and B's, and then it converts that to an object here, even though it says it returns an array in the documentation here. Interesting. Okay, so we're rebuilding. We're transferring an object into a new one, applying to every key value pair a function, creating none, one, or many new key value pairs. Right. Okay. So like many. So like we could do r dot identity. Sorry, r dot identity. Um, and that would give us error, not an error, but it just output the function. So in this case, I guess we can't do a point free. Oh yeah, because we're using the points up here. So this might work. Yeah. Um, and it didn't actually. Let's go back to this key dot do uppercase. Yeah. So we uppercase it and then get one, and then we get to lowercase a and one. And then it goes to the next bit in the object, the next key value pair. Uppercase is the B, gives us the squared value, and then lowercase is the B and gives us the squared value. And I just don't know what else to do with strings other than uppercase or lowercase. Like you could trim it, but it doesn't need to be trimmed. So this is fine. Uh, yeah, very, very specific. I wish I had a better use case to demo it, but we're just learning what it does and how to read these signatures and descriptions. Trying to think if there's something else I could do with it. I mean, I don't know why, but I just want to have a third function. Oh, okay. And combining the results. I misspelled the word results. Um, so in this case, again, like I'm uppercasing and then lowercase and then uppercasing, but I'm only getting uppercase and lowercase. So it's ignoring one of these because, again, when you have these duplicates and objects, it lets the last one win. So I'm sure it's doing this one. Um, in fact, to make sure, let's just say V plus V so we get a different calculation. See what we get. Yeah, we get A2, B4, and C6. So it's just ignoring this one. Or it doesn't ignore it, but it like does this and then it does the lowercase. And then when it does this again, it overwrites this one because they're the same. Of course, you wouldn't do that on purpose, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. Well, so that's rebuild. We'll get back to this again when we get to the R's because it's going to be some time. So we'll do another review. But let's look at rename keys. That's much more straightforward. And even the name gives me an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to take an object which has some keys and we're going to rename those keys. So it takes an object, and it returns an object. And this is also a very recent addition to Ramda, version 31. So it takes an object pairing existing keys with the new ones. An object pairing existing keys with the new one with new ones. I don't understand that. And it takes a target object to convert. It returns an object, which is the result of replacing existing keys with their mapping counterparts when such exist. Okay, I think I understand it better now. So the object is the mapping. So an object is a map. Like we have map, um, our map type, which is like an object, but it doesn't have to. The keys don't have to be strings. They can be anything. But essentially, what you're doing with an object is you're mapping a key to a value. So that's what this object is. It's like a mapping of a key to a value. An object pairing existing keys with new ones. Okay, let's read the description. It converts an object to new ones by changing all the keys that are also found as keys in a mapping object to their corresponding value from that object. Okay, let's grab some of this here. So we've got an object here. Make this just a little easier to read. Nothing crazy here. Name, first name, address, is street. And then we've got, oh, and that's our mapping. I see. Okay. So and we're going to rename the keys, right? So we're going to rename the name key, the first name, and the address key to street. And so this is like the data that we have, name, John, city, Paris. And then like you don't want object.name and object.city. You want object.firstname and object. Oh, address, but it says that are also found as keys in the mapping object, right? So converting an object or converts an object to a new one by changing all the keys that are also found as keys in a mapping object. So it converts these keys if they're in our mapping object. This is like a lookup table. And usually I'll use a map for this, but they're just using an object. In fact, I haven't seen Ramda use maps or sets in anything. They're always using objects. So that's just something to keep in the back of my mind. Maybe there's a reason for that. And then we're just taking two arguments and returning a third one. So we can just say r.rename, r.rename, sorry, rename ease. And we're taking the first thing it takes is the mapping object because we could partially apply it if we wanted to. But for now, we'll just call it all at one time, pass in the object. And so I'm not looking over here, I promise. So it's going to go and look at name, which is John, and it's going to say, okay, yeah, we got a name. So let's rename this key to first name. But then it gets to city, and there's no city in the mapping object. So my guess is it's just going to pass back the city with the Paris. Second best guess would be that it just would only give us back an object with first name that is John. So that's my guess, trying to reason through it. Um, yeah, and my first thing was right. So, but if we had a city here and change it to my ends, I don't think that'll work. Maybe it'll work. It's got the space. That's what I'm wondering. Yeah, but it's added quotes around it because there's that space. But if I did like my ends, first name John, my ends Paris, and it renames it. So I mean, it renames the keys. It's what it says it does. Um, and yeah, this could be like this is a really handy one for partial application. So we could say I'm just going to call rename keys and do r dot rename keys and pass it the mapping. And then we would just call it with the data and we get back the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, this could be a handy one. It's very straightforward. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's go back to where we were in the M's. We did map keys, and we haven't looked at map object yet. So let's knock out that and get done with the map stuff. Clear this, close it. Oh, okay. Map object indexed. So this works on objects, and we know that map, just map by itself, works on Ramda provides suitable map implementations for array and object. And then we have add index because by default in Ramda, you don't have access to the index or the array as you're iterating, like you do in the array.prototype.map method that's built in. So this is like a super map. So my guess before reading it is it's going to map over objects, but it's also going to give you the index. It's like adding add index to map, but there's got to be some other reason because you could just use map. You could just do r dot add index to r dot map, and that would do the same thing. So there's got to be something more to it. So this is going to take two arguments. The first one's a function, and the function takes anything as the first item, and then it takes a string, and then it takes an object, and it gives us back anything, and then we pass it on object, and it gives us back an object. So that's straightforward enough, but let's try to figure out this thing. So like, that's not helpful at all. Function and object returns an object. We have to read an object specific version of map. Okay. So map works with objects, but this one's specific for objects. The function is applied to three arguments: the value, the key, and the object. Okay, so for some reason, they like to swap the value and the key. Like we always think key value, but this is value key. And I think there's some built-in methods in JavaScript that are the same thing, and it always trips me up. If only the value is significant, use map instead. Okay, this is saying like you get the value already. Uh, oh, yeah, no, this is the normal way. Like in map, in the array.prototype.map, you get three arguments. You get the value, the index, and the array. But we're dealing with objects. So like the analogy to an index, well, an index is a key in an array, right? It's just the key that's automatically generated for you when you're using a list. But arrays are objects in JavaScript. So that makes sense. Not really backwards. And then the object, which is like the thing that you pass in. So very similar to map, it's just specific to objects, just like they say. And then you've got all three of these things to work with. So it really is a lot like what I said. So let's ignore their example and let's use, mm, no, let's use theirs because again, it's hard to think of a callback function that's going to work with the D dot object that I have coming from here. So let's use their data. So we've got an object, I'm going to call it obj. X is 1, Y is 2, Z is 3. And we're going to, just thinking of something, but let's do map object indexed. And it's going to take three arguments, right? So let's put them all in different lines. So this first argument is going to be a callback function. Let's do it in line. And we're going to take the value key and object. So let's just name it that. Value key and object. Object. Just so it's different than this here. And let's just output them all as like a tuple or a tuple. So annoying. Let's put these on different lines. So, oh, actually, let's do it like this. Put each argument on its separate line. All right, so that's the first argument. That's the function. And then we need to pass an object. So we'll pass our this object here, obj. Let's run it. Yeah, and so we're passing the object and it's giving us back the same keys, right? And because so like map does the same thing too. If you map over an object, gives you back an object with the same keys, but it applies the mapping function to the value. But here we're getting not only the value, we're getting these extra things, the key and the original object. The key is X, key is Y, key is Z, value is 1, 2, 3. So we could do like value times 2 and r dot upper, 2 upper. Apply that to the key. And why don't we, just for consistency, why don't we do r dot multiply 2 in calculation, just using more random functions. Multiply 2, it's the value. And now this is sloppy, so let's put this on its own line, right? So we get the value key and object, and we're going to multiply the value by 2 and uppercase the key, and just what could we do with the object? I mean, it's optional, but since we can use it, let's do something with it. Let's do r dot 2 pairs and convert that to a tuple, key value pairs. See what that gets or gives us. It gives us an array because I'm consoling this. What if we JSON.stringify this? Starts there and ends here. I don't know if this will work or not. Yeah, it does, but the formatting is terrible. But let's just take one piece of it. Like, or actually, what if we just grab it here? And since Prettier's been so annoying, maybe it'll be usefully annoying. Format that. And I'm getting errors here. And it could be semicolon related, but it's not. Maybe it's, I put it in parentheses. Yeah. All right. And then let's format it. There we go. All right. So what did that give us? We're mapping over with the index and the object that we're passing in. And then we're returning a tuple where we're multiplying the value by 2, uppercasing the key, and changing the object to a list of key value pairs, like a list of entries. And then we need that. And so ignore the outer parentheses on line 22 and line 50, but we're getting back this object. And so here's 1. This is for the first iteration of X. So we did indeed multiply the value by 2. So 1 gave us 2, right? Yeah, 1 gave us 2. Lowercase x resulted in uppercase X, and then we converted the original object to an array of pairs, but we didn't uppercase that. We just changed the original object to pairs. So again, Rambo's got just the tons of functions that take a data structure and allow you to restructure it. Um, and I would imagine if you found a use case for this and it was a common use case, you would use this like crazy. Um, and more likely, like you might not need the object, but you might need the value and the X. But it tells you, excuse me, if only the value is significant, don't overcomplicate it. Just use the map. But when you need to use this and the index, this is the one to use. Now, the only question I have is could we just make this using Ramda's map function and add index function? And I'm going to try. So if we did r.map and we passed in a function that took, we're mapping over the values. So let's r.inc, let's increment and then pass in the obj. And we get x2, y3, z4, x1, 2, 3. So we're just incrementing the values. We leave the keys alone. But if we did r.add index, apply that to the map function. So it's like a decorator function. We're decorating the map function with this additional argument. And then we use inc as the mapper function and object as the data. Let's make sure that just runs before we do anything with the index. And it does. It gives us back 2, 3, 4. Um, but we have access to the index now. So could we say, and actually the add index gives us the index and the um, original object. So it gives us the index and the original object. So let's just do an inline function. We'll say our x and I. So x is the value like this, or actually it's only it's not giving us the x, it's the key, it's giving us the value. So let's call it v, the value and the I, which is the index. And then the object we're passing to it. Oh, sorry, that's the second parameter, second argument. So we had the v and the I. Why don't we just output an array, a tuple of the I and the v times 2, or we could say r dot multiply b 2, like that maybe. It doesn't like that. Oh, because we're using points here, we have to pass the v as well. Yeah, and so we get 0, 2, 1, 4, 2, 6. So it looks like you can actually just do map object indexed using a combination of add index and map. Um, Makes me wonder why they haven't added a map indexed function, which is the same thing but works on arrays instead of objects. Maybe this is just more convenient. One less thing to think about. But it is what it is, and I understand it. So I think we'll leave the video here. We've gotten through all the map stuff, and we've been in that world for a while and related functions, and we've made a good amount of progress to the M's where we are here. One, two, three, four, five. Okay. So really, we've only made it five functions deep through the M's, and there's 22 of them, I think. So we got a long way to go. Um, but we're getting away from this whole mapping thing. When we look at the next two, we've got a string function and a math function. It'll be nice to switch it up. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me. Tell a friend, and I'll see you in the next video.